So they took water from the big tank, and then when this tank will fill up during the course of the day, because it would fill up, then I hooked something up on the other side, I opened it up, and I pumped it into the storage tank. People still come get water, but if
All right. All right. Hey, this is Bartholomew with Black with No Chaser. We are here with some amazing individuals who have started to change the world in ways that you could not believe. Without further ado, we'll actually let them introduce themselves, and we'll jump right into it. Go ahead.
Black with No Chaser, blessings. I'm Chief Richard Currie from the Accompong Maroons. The Maroons are the First Nations people of Jamaica, and we're happy to be here today just to share this moment, a monumental occasion, being here with Moses West Foundation and a group of awesome people to discuss, just the progress of the Maroons of Jamaica and some of the ideas and concepts that we'd love to venture and initiate coming up these meetings.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, man. Respect Black with No Chasers. Ambassador Anuel. I am Ambassador to Chief Richard Currie and the Accompong Maroons, a very resilient people with an illustrious history. And, as we go through this interview, we hope that many will start to be educated and look into their background and their descendants.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So let's start with the very basics. Tell me about what you're wearing, because this, when you first walked up, I'm thinking, I don't even know these guys, but I know they got some kind of important title somewhere. And so tell us what you're wearing. Tell us what it means. Tell us what it means to the people and to your people.
Okay. Right. So I'm wearing a Zulu headpiece, right, which was given to me by members of the Zuni tribe and a network of African kings and queens called AIDO. And they came to Accompong in 2023 on Treaty Day. And it's a special day for us. They installed me as a part of their network, being a paramount chief. And for that, I was graced with the headpiece as well as the staff, which is symbolic of leadership within majority of our African indigenous community.
So the Accompong Maroons. Who are the Accompong Maroons? Or who are the Jamaican Maroons in general? The Jamaican Maroons, as Chief Currie said, are the First Nation people of Jamaica, right? Jamaica is a very special place because in Jamaica, there was a band of people during the time of slavery in the colonial period and even pre-Columbian period that banded together to live, to have a life, to grow their family. And then all of a sudden, at some point in history, the period around 1492, during the shift of what we would consider an era of conquest, right? Moving from our people, the Moors, and these other Moroccan Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the last phases of that, then transition now over to what we know as the history of Isabella and Ferdinand, funding Columbus to come over to the West, to discover lands that were already here and people that were already here. So we are a people that have a history in Jamaica, in the mountains, that is a testament that can show the world that we never ever gave up land. We were never ever conquered. No colonial force was ever able to take our lands from us or force us into submission. For that reason, we were able to bring the British Empire, that was the mightiest empire at that time, that was conquering everywhere. And in little Jamaica on this island, and even further in this little portion of Jamaica in Cockpit Country, we were able to defeat this army. We were able to bring to the knees, a country, an empire that was gearing to try and take our lands from us. Jamaica was being used to funnel empires in terms of riches. In Jamaica, there was sugarcane industry. The sugarcane industry was the gem and the jewel of the empire at this time. It's almost like what you would consider oil today, right, in Dubai, and how important it was. So the Maroons at this point figured out whenever the Spanish first came, and they were not able to defeat us. The British then followed right after. And all the Maroons were able to do by going into the mountains, allowing the British and the Spanish to fight first and then figure out who was going to stay. And once the British decided to stay, the Maroons then came back out of the mountains and started fighting. So we had to use strategic warfare in order to preserve our livelihood. That war would have gone on for over 80 years. So in 1738, we were able to bring this empire to their knees because, of course, they were not able to continuously keep funding this entire conquest against us, because we were burning down the sugarcane plantations. We were taking slaves from the plantations and giving them protection in the mountains and growing our communities. And as we amalgamated with these various tribes and races, from the Tainos, the Arawaks, and the rest of the Moors and the rest of the African descendants who would have came down here, whether as indentured servants or as slaves, we were bringing this bloodline together, a very unique bloodline that was now named Maroons, right? So that is who we are today, the living testament. 287 years later, we're able to still preserve our inalienable rights as a sovereign people. We are recognized as such by the international bodies around the world, and we look forward to continuing to grow our community and our people towards upward economic and social mobility.
And just to add to that, it's important we understand the context of freedom, right? Because we're coming at 1738, you're looking at 300 years of our peoples being enslaved, right? Generations would have not known what freedom was, right? The Maroons reminded us of what that was. We were the catalyst to the movement of freedom and emancipation in the new age, right? So when they say Haiti was the first republic in the West, that's true, but there was also what happened here in Jamaica,
Right.
which predates what happened in Haiti. And what happened in Haiti was inspired by a Jamaican Maroon who went over to Haiti to help descendants and start that revolution.
Dutty
Bookman. Yeah. So the history is so deep and it's so rich. And I mentioned earlier, the 1738 treaty was signed by King George, the same King George that signed the treaty between the British and the
Right. Well, the war here
in
terms of Declaration of Independence in 1776, which came after our treaty, it was the same king, the same British Empire that the United States of America was fighting. And at that time, the British side of the United States of America had to sign treaties with the indigenous people here in North America, right, in the Americas, to be able to fight off the British. Why? Because they would have seen and known that there were a set of people in Jamaica, the Maroons, that had already been able to achieve a treaty, to achieve recognition of independence. So in Jamaica, most people did not know at that time, there were two jurisdictions. You had the jurisdiction for what we know today and we consider as Black people, right? The Maroons, the Africans, and then you had a jurisdiction for the Europeans. That's what that Treaty of Peace and Friendship does. You had a choice on the island to choose which government you wanted to be under. And the truth is, most people believe that this law is dead today. On the books today in the Jamaican Constitution, Clause 4 is the savings clause, which states that all laws prior to the Queen and prior to this Constitution are still in force. Therefore, the Treaty of 1738 is still in force, giving rise to the protection of our lands, giving rise to our jurisdiction, and giving rise to Chief Richard Currie and his administration utilizing our autonomy, utilizing the inherent power that we have, that our ancestors signed in blood, so that we can push our generation forward, push our people forward, because we do have the unborn that is yet to come into this world. And if not now, when? If not us, then who? So we're taking that approach to be able to create an environment and a society for the unborn to come, so that just like we saw and can talk so great about our ancestors 300 years before us, what they left, we hope and pray that 300 years to 1,000 years from now, they would look at us in the same way.
So tell us about the culture. Tell us about your people. Tell us about the politics. Let's kind of jump into it. So first thing first, let's talk about your people. Talk about your culture and your tribes.
So Maroons are quiet people, right? We like to be in peace. And I think a lot of that has carried from generations of past, you know. After the war, the Maroons were not easily trusting of people, right? So they rather, you know, stayed in the back, shut themselves off. And that, to some extent, helped to preserve our culture, but it also deprived us of the ability to develop and move forward our generations that were to come. Because I think the Maroons suffered the worst, the end of the war, because the British, having sugar at the base of their empire, was able to rebuild quicker than the Maroons were. And as such, a lot of the commerce on the island was being driven by the British. So then for the Maroons to participate in that commerce, they were being forced now to take British documents, state documents, I should say, right? And then came the attack on our identity. For the sake of using their commercial papers, they're saying, oh no, but you're a Jamaican citizen because you have Jamaican papers. But you see, again, ignorance is a thing, because people do not understand that having piece of paper, participation in commerce, has nothing to say about my identity, who I am, right? I'm a Maroon first. So having a Jamaican driver's license or Jamaican passport does not diminish or remove that any at all. If anything, I'm utilizing my right. My right to be a Maroon, my right to also be a Jamaican.
Right.
So we're taking nothing from the state, right? We're actually adding to the state. The Maroon culture adds to the state. So the Republic argument without the inclusion of the Maroons is absurd, because you're actually ripping away the fabric of Jamaican identity. See that, right?
How many people are in the Maroon district?
Well, in Accompong and the direct adjoining districts, we're talking 3,000 to 4,000 individuals.
Okay.
On the wider base of Cockpit Country, you're talking upwards of 70,000 people.
70,000?
Or more.
Or more.
Easily.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I just
Listen,
don't.
the thing is, the fabric of Jamaica is woven into that of which the Maroons had established. So the bloodline, when you talk about the Maroon bloodline, you can't just singularly identify a particular narrative along that bloodline, because Maroon also came through the mentality, a mentality of freedom, right? It didn't have to be in the blood.
Right.
There were white men who were considered Maroon, because the mentality was one of freedom, liberation, just.
But they would have had to be mixed. There was the honorary Maroon.
Correct.
The
Let's use that as an example.
Right. It's as an example.
It's not bent on just bloodline, right?
Yeah.
The collective of people they describe as Maroons were those who they couldn't catch.
Right.
They were wild, untamed. It was the Spanish word cimarron that was, crafted. We got to the word Maroon.
Correct. And in harmony with what Chief Currie is saying, how interconnected the Americas is with the Maroon history. When he said Cimarron, it's the same title that was given to the Seminoles. So the Seminoles are also Maroons. The Gullah Geechee in the Carolinas, they are Maroons.
Wow.
Right? To believe it or not, most of the Native American tribes are also Maroons. The term became very derogatory, and because of every 10 years, unfortunately, groups of people banding together because of conquest wanted to rip the identity away from a certain class of people. And unfortunately, our people, whether we consider Black people, ended up on the short end of the stick during the rise of capitalism. Because in order for there to be a set of rich people, there has to be a class that is going to be the consumers. And unfortunately, because our people have lost identity across the Western Hemisphere, and we have been divided to that factor, we find ourselves having to climb this ladder in what you call a social ladder, I would then say, right? But on a day-to-day, our people are very proud people. We have a farming community, you know, Cockpit Country and Accompong, where we're situated, our location. We have over 40% of Jamaica's water that is flowing out of Cockpit Country to the rest of Jamaica.
Oh.
Just to give you the value of how important our equity is in Jamaica.
Right.
Right. Also, our lands are very fertile. So whether you're going to be farming food security is not a major concern for us. But we are having other projects such as, seed banks and things like that, just for the protection again, in forward thinking for the onboard.
So let me ask you, I'm sorry, Chief, go ahead.
Along with farming, the community also benefits from tourism.
Yes.
Right. We do tours, community tours, experiential tours of varying types. People come and participate on a weekly basis. Something we want to build out on in a responsible way.
And so what does that look like? Do they sign up for a tour? How does it happen?
Correct. So we have a tour desk. We have a museum that's there in the community center as well as monuments and relics throughout the community. So someone can call the tour desk, book a tour, they come up, they'll be met by a tour guide who takes them through the community. And depending on the size of the group, I would sometimes drop in just to give a few words on the history and, where we are and what's going on now. These are just tidbits of how our community sustains itself, right? There are obviously a lot more opportunities there that we'd love to tap into, which is partly why we're here, because water is a significant issue. Even though we have 40% under our feet, we don't have the equipment, the technology, or the finances to bring it to our houses. So we've been working assiduously, and thanks to the Miyasaka Foundation, they're assisting us with acquiring one of these AWG units. We're so happy that we're now setting the foundation for sustainable development within our space.
So earlier you mentioned that Maroons produce about almost 40% of the water for Jamaica.
We have the storage because of our land based on the mountains
and so is there a way do you have to pay taxes or anything, or how do you distribute your wealth, or how do you actually
So just like any other indigenous community, the age-old kind of understanding of the indigenous story is that we were not able to develop infrastructure fast enough as other societies were growing.
Most definitely.
It's similar the same in Maroon territory. Most people then kind of align themselves to the Jamaican government side of what is happening in politics in Jamaica. And so that's just because of course, commerce and finance.
Right?
So that took away most of the people, or as soon as people are getting visas and flying away, they become part of the overseas diaspora. And then what has to happen is that those people then have to send back to the community finances. And that's how we start to develop ourselves. We have to create our own internal structures in order to develop ourselves. Why? How the government of Jamaica would look at it is that if we're not paying any taxes to the government of Jamaica, nor our lands fall under the government of Jamaica, then the government of Jamaica cannot legally take taxpayers' funds and move those monies into our territory until there is an agreement as to how the Maroons and the government of Jamaica move forward, into what the future may look like. Which is what we would want to know as a republic, right? Where the First Nation people are actually embedded within the preamble of this new constitution. Without that being happening, brother, you're going to see the same things that were happening in the history of Jamaica prior to even this interview right here.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that? In 1962, when Jamaica got its independence, not by war, not by, any fight at all, they went to, England, and they asked the crown and the queen to grant them what is called an order in council in her journal for them to be granted independence. Okay? But when we look at this structure, it was the same slave masters, generational families who were controlling Jamaica at that time that were granted this government. So when we're saying our people want freedom, we're seeing that the Maroons were still this last leverage point of freedom for our people. That is why Chief Currie and his administration today are so powerful, because the message that we're carrying is such a pure message, going back to root, going back to the source, going all the way back to 1738. As the British High Commissioner came most recently in 2018 and 2019 to Accompong during our treaty celebrations and for Captain Cutler's birthday. Captain Cutler was who is the predecessor for Chief Richard Currie, who would have signed that treaty with the British, right? He came and he, under no uncertain terms, no ambiguity, he said the treaty is as important today as it was in 1738, and that governments must take treaties important and cannot forget the importance of a treaty.
All right. So we were talking about the land, the people. Tell us about the land. What do we have in Jamaica?
I think you were asking what was the reason of the tension.
Oh, the
between us
tensions.
and the
You're right.
government,
I'm sorry.
right?
Yes.
We started saying that it's the root of it is the land, right? Obviously, moving to become a republic, the government has ignored our calls for dialogue, not just Accompong, but all the Maroons and indigenous peoples on the land. And the reason we believe the government is being hesitant with those conversations is because there is the belief the land belonging to the Maroons can be absorbed into the new Republic of Jamaica without consultation or dialogue from the Maroons, which is ludicrous. The fact is, the new technology that's now available has allowed state to actually come through these territories, point these machines down on us, and are now able to tell what's in our soil.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been reports of a significant find of rare earth as well as minerals, valuable mineral that passes bauxite in terms of value that lies beneath us in Cockpit Country. 1738, they would know that. They would allow us to be in the hills.
So like,
They would
take
allow
the land,
the
right?
Washington line, you know, and haven't been ceded or haven't been conquered for 287 years. The advent of new technology is telling state governments, you can now go and take this land without having to deal with the people, right? Now, we have done everything to try and raise the alarm to the people and to the wider nation what's happening in Jamaica. It's dire, it's distressing, and it's urgent. Because the fact is, they're privateers, government, that are coming in to our country and siding with our government to siphon off our lands and our mineral. So it's a big, a significant issue, which is why we went to the United Nations in 2022 to bring our grouches forward. We had the visit of the Special Country Rapporteur for Indigenous Rights, came to Accompong, spent the night in Accompong, and left us with distinct protocols to follow should there be any violation of our rights.
Or if we were left out of the new constitution that was being formed, which at this point they have put forward a bill in Parliament
Without our
approval, without our
input,
without any dialogue at all. And they're very much aware of what our input is. We have tried to be diplomatic for over 4 years to get across a message. We obviously know that they don't want to sit at the table with an administration like ours because, quite frankly, we're just too strong. We're too intelligent to just give away our land to another set of people who are going to give it off to foreigners. Right now, as I speak to you, it's being publicized in the paper that a foreign company was given the mining rights for gold that they found in Jamaica with the same scan that Chief Currie is telling you about. Because they're scanning our land, they're finding gold, they're finding copper outside of the rare earth elements, right? No, right? We know that we can execute. We have been given and granted support from many international bodies, even countries from around the world, to say that they do support our stance. Whether they want, use the word resistance, they do support it. But more so, they understand and respect our birthright. That's the word I would want to implore today to the network of Black with No Chasers. Everybody who listens to this and say, what are these two young men talking about? It's talking about your pre-existing rights before anybody else came to say, this is man's law and these are your rights, right? We're talking about your God-given inalienable rights. That's what indigenous people look at. Because remember, when they actually mine lands Black with No Chasers, right? They are destroying the earth. Farming lands do not come back. They say that they're going to fix the land after, I don't know, there's some title for it or some name.
Replenishing their
replenishing.
Land restoration.
Land restoration. It doesn't work. That has been a failed theory for a very long time. And I mean, if we were able, we're going to share a picture with you. So maybe even during this interview, you can pop that picture up right where I'm about to say this. These people have no heart. They went and started mining right beside a school, a primary school, where infant children are. So this dust carries chemicals in it as well. The chemicals are getting into water catchments and people are getting sick, right? And this is violating people's constitutional rights to, the degradation of land and the protection of their environment. These are all laws that are on the books, but yet, unfortunately, we don't have much protection in Jamaica when there are people that are after our assets.
Yeah. Our conceptualization of a truly settled Jamaica, there's effective representation of the indigenous voices within Parliament. There's the acknowledgement of the contributions of the indigenous people to the forming of this great nation. There's the acknowledgement in legislature, how the treatment and application and remedies having to deal with the indigenous population versus the state population. There has to be common and mutual understanding because, again, the fabric of Jamaica is a blend of its indigenous with its state.
Mm-hmm. Out of many,
one people. But without the recognition of the many and their contributions, there can't be one.
Mm-hmm.
There can't be one nor one net.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So for us, the ideal setup is dialogue that is constructive towards facilitative involvement and inclusion for the Maroons as it relates to trade, commerce, social programs, and education, trade, health.
Yeah. And behind what Chief Currie is just stating, we don't want Black without chasers, the diaspora, or anybody interpret like we are just sitting and waiting for this dialogue to take care of our people or our government. No, in parallel to that happening, we're even here in Washington, D.C. right now meeting with many people, many important people that are involved, whether it's through technology, are holding patents to help with agriculture, to fix various forms. We've met a senator out of Maryland. There are many people who are connecting here in our advocacy because why? We still have a people to take care of. We still have a community to take care of. Chief Currie and his administration recently, with the aid of a number of sponsors, right? Especially one for a reason why we're here purchasing this machine. All right, and another supporter of ours, we want to big up Mr. Mary Bujubantan, who also gave a platform as well to be able to get our message out there. And that actually was held, that show, that concert was held last year summer, August in D.C., which got a big, massive crowd and a profound response. So big up Buju, right? He helped to push where I would say energy needed to be using his platform, right? So with this interview with Black with No Chasers, right behind the movement of what we're doing, we hope that there are more supporters will see what we're doing.
Thank you both. I appreciate it, man. All right. So why don't you guys tell me how you met with Mr. Moses West and what the future looks like with that company?
Boy, Moses was. Let me tell you how I came up. Well, I first came across his page on Instagram, right? And looking at the technology, I was blown away. I didn't have any idea what the cost of those units were. So I reached out to Moses. It was in 2021, believe, or 2022.
Yeah, man, 21.
And he responded, but it wasn't enough. He just gave me pretty much just responding, saying, thank you for reaching out. I'm very interested in looking at what the Maroons are doing. And I know he's been very busy, so we didn't get into the meat of looking at that, the possibility of making this happen. And then I also eventually found out the cost of the units. I'm like, whoa, we gotta figure this out.
Get ourselves together.
Think about this some
Right.
more.
Yeah.
So fast forward 2022, no, 2025. I knew reached out back to Moses. I think it was last year.
Yes.
Last year, when we were discussing this, and we knew we had some funds that were supposed to come in. So we started thinking on how we're going to get water in our community. So we thought that one of the short-term solutions, while we get to the more long-term solution, is the AWG. Only coming to find out the AWG is actually a long-term solution, but it's one that's scalable.
Right.
But the great thing is that with this technology, we're able to do several things, right? And on top of that, at the backbone of that is water sustainability, clean drinking water at a sustainable capacity, right, and efficiency that will serve our community going forward. And we spoke about the options that were available and what this would look like. And then came Jeff and Leela, who really took the lead on those conversations. And I can only say, man, this is an amazing journey so far. We haven't even got the unit yet. We're just looking at the work that these guys have been putting in, the things that are in front of us as opportunities, not only within the realms of water, but as a agriculture and sustainable development. I think we're at the tip of something very, very significant, not only for the Moses West Foundation and Accompong Maroons, but the people that we serve and the people who will benefit from what it is that we're about to embark on. So I'm very grateful for having met Moses West and his team. And of course, Jeff and Leela. Amazing. It's been amazing.
Right. I consider it almost providence at this point,
Oh, yeah.
Moses' name, right? And then him in
Is
water.
I'm telling you, I said the exact same thing.
Right. So when you look at it and then have us here, it's a joy. I want to see what happens from here. These machines being us and Chief Currie him under his leadership, being that we can actually brag and say we are the first ones in the Caribbean to bring this machine on the ground. First ones in Jamaica, and when people actually see how this thing works on the ground, that's just one of many machines that we'll be bringing there, and that's a smaller unit. So we came here today specifically to highlight that we're very much invested in this type of technology, and as I said, the water from it is just the tip of what we're able to do with these machines. And I trust that the people of, Jamaica, and of course, our own people within our Maroon communities will see the importance and, of course, benefit.
Thank you both.